Good afternoon, and today we have a pleasure of interviewing somebody I admire for a long time, Guy Winch. He's a psychologist, 3 times TED Talk, a bestseller author, and now he published this book, what I have on my screen, Mind Over Grind, how not to bring work into sleep, into home, to the partner, and we'll find out all the secret. I think it's very time-related program or book because everybody now uncertain, everybody in a state of burnout, and I really like how Guy talk about how this burnout or this uncertainty, something what never happened with us before because we didn't have help of AI or changing of identity over that fact. So my first question to you, Guy, tell me what's so different about the modern burnout versus to, burnout situation, what happened before?
So what happened to us over the pandemic was because of the shutdowns, our psychological barrier between work and home, that distinction that we had, that our home is for us and work is where we work, that got shattered over the pandemic because we were all working from home to an extent. And psychologically, that allowed work to invade us at home. And why burnout is so prevalent now is because it's not contained to the workplace or the workspace. It spills over and it impacts us when we're not at work, when we're trying not to think about work, and our mind is much more susceptible to that because that barrier was so broken during the pandemic. So we're more vulnerable, and then you're seeing it spill over, and then it has a much bigger effect than it used to.
I actually, you're a big fan, as you know, I listened How to Heal the Broken Heart. That TED Talk many times, I love it. But now we have a new topic, what I really love, because people bring work to sleep, just like I mentioned before. So from psychological perspective, how does unprocessed emotional stress affect sleep? And what can we do to maintain mental resilience?
So one of the things I say to people is that if you're thinking about work when you're home, then you're still working. You're still at work. And what happens that when you have a difficult day at the office, when you've had a conflict with someone, when something upsetting happened, when you had a client scream at you, when your boss was dismissive of you in a meeting, when your coworker stabbed you in the back, when this one got a promotion instead of you, any one of those upsetting things, when those things happen, you are going to ruminate about them when you get home. To ruminate means you're going to brood about them, you're going to think about them, and you're going to think about them in very unproductive ways. You're not going to sit there and go, I wonder what I should do about this. You're actually going to sit there and go, I can't believe this happened, and how could she say that to me, and why did she say that? And you're going to replay the argument that you had and imagine, I wish I would have said this, I wish I would have said that. And we can spend hours in this kind of emotional hamster wheel, ruminating about these upsetting things from work when we get home. And the research is quite clear that the more you ruminate about work, the more you think about work after work, when you're home, the more likely you are to have sleep disturbances, the more likely you are to have struggle to fall asleep in the first place because you're switched on and you're wired up, and that's not a state which will allow you to fall asleep quickly, or the more likely you will be to wake up at 3 a.m. thinking again about, I can't believe this and I can't believe that, or to wake up early with some kind of anxiety about the unresolved situation. So it's that pathway from the stresses of the workplace that leak into the home, that keep us preoccupied after hours, that then truly impair our sleep in profound ways.
And I'm sure you put a lot of very valuable advice in this book, Mind Over Grind, which published, very recently. And you often talk about emotional hygiene. If burnout, we can say, kind of, synonymous with inflammation, mental inflammation. What are daily anti-emotional, anti-inflammatory remedies or habits we should practice to prevent that burnout.
So if you want to think about those kinds of stresses as being inflammatory causes, then we have to minimize the causes, to minimize the inflammation. Again, when you are ruminating about work when you're home, you are maintaining and you're making worse that inflammatory response, as it were. And so one thing that you can do about rumination is what you're ruminating about is something that's upsetting and distressing. And you haven't figured out what to do about it, because once you figure out what to do about it, that will ease the stress. That will make you less compelled to ruminate. So catch yourself spinning about that argument that you're going to have and you're never going to have, but you're fantasizing about, and say to yourself, all right, so my colleague did this thing to me, which I'm upset about. Do I need to speak to my colleague? And if so, what's the outcome I'm trying to achieve? And once I know what I'm trying to achieve, what's the best way to work backwards and figure out how to get there? Or maybe I don't need to do anything, but I need to be very, very careful from this person now and maybe not trust them as much. And whatever the conclusion will be, you have to think it through. But you take the thing that you're upset about, that you're ruminating about, and you turn it into a problem that needs to be solved. You ask yourself, what are the action items that I need to take away from this issue? What do I do to resolve it temporarily, or decide I'm not doing anything right now, but I need, if something happens again, that I will. Decide where you are, what you're going to do, if anything, and if so, what that is. Once you've decided all of that, it's much easier to put it aside because you've resolved it, at least temporarily. Unless you do that, then it's unresolved, and that's when the spinning will continue.
But sometimes it's so hard to find the solution, because it might be more than one solution, 3 solutions, 5 solutions, and a lot of people wake up in that state at 3 a.m. in the morning. So tell us what to do at this time, because like people upset about being upset, people upset about waking up, people concerned about how they're gonna perform next day. So there are so many things attached to that.
Yes, but people wake up at 3 in the morning because they're still in fight or flight, in a stressed mode when they're going to bed, because they actually haven't taken. When we have young kids, what do you do with a 2-year-old before bedtime? An hour before bedtime, you start lowering the lights, slowing things down. We're not playing anymore. The toys go away. You speak in a softer tone. An hour you take to get their hyped up 2-year-old system to start preparing for bed. We're not 2, but our systems too need time to unwind and to lower the gear, so we're actually in a restful mode. And we don't do it because we're rushing from home, and then we're trying to do this and we're trying to do that. We don't actually relax. We're still thinking about work, or we're still dealing with everything. You have to take time to unwind at the end of the day. Number one. And number two, when you say, but there are 5 solutions and people can't think of 5 solutions, people don't think of one solution. It's not that they thought of one and there are 4 others. They don't. They don't think of a solution. They just spin about it. When you're actually thinking of a solution and feel like, okay, does that feel like I know enough about this right now? Can I put it aside right now? Or is there something that's still troubling me? Yes, I'm still annoyed at it, but I feel like I figured it out. If the answer is yes, it's less likely to wake you up at 3 in the morning. But by the way, if something does wake you up at 3 in the morning, it happens to me too. When I have a lot on my plate, when there's a lot I'm dealing with, I'll wake up and with a to-do list, like, oh, I really need to do this and this and this. What I do is I developed an intolerance for it, because it's a thread, and once you start following that thread, then you completely wake yourself up, because now your brain is starting to plan, starting to strategize, your feelings are getting involved. Now you're completely awake. So I will resist it. I'll first like, oh, I have to do this. And then I literally said to myself, oh, no. Not thinking about that now. I'm not thinking about, I literally will fill my brain with no. If you keep saying no in your brain, quietly in your head, there's no room for another thought, because you're too busy going, no. I'll no, and get my head back on the pillow. And no, I don't count sheep. I no, until I start to feel tired. I am not letting that thought start, because once you let it in, then you're going to be switched on. So I really resist the idea of it, even at 3 in the morning. No, now I'm now sleep. And then I tell myself, you're really tired. You're really tired. So I'm trying to focus on, reminding myself that I'm actually quite tired. And that's what works for me in terms of trying to get back to sleep.
That's a wonderful practical advice. So resisting no, and then to remind yourself, like to be in control of your own brain. I think to say, oh yeah, I'm tired. But Now I'm going to ask you a different question, a little bit more philosophical. What actually first emotional sign of somebody heading towards burnout? What would be, but they still look like high functioning, how they can, let's say diagnose themselves and get help, or maybe read the book?
Well, first of all, they should read the book. But secondly, look, here's the thing. When you're heading toward burnout, or you're starting to kind of be in, there are different degrees of burnout, but when you're starting to enter that, then what you feel is you just start to feel really tired all the time. A good night's sleep doesn't do it. You're just tired at a deeper level. And you just feel that, and you just wake up tired. You wake up like having to take a deep breath to face. It's not wake up, yay, I get to do this, I'm excited for this part of the day. You wake up like there's a ton of bricks on you, and you're labored, and you feel like, and now I have to get through another day. If you feel it, and a lot of people say to me, like, I wake up and I know I have to get through the day. That feeling of I have to get through the day, when you have it day after day, those are signs of burnout. You also start to numb. The stuff that you were doing, the stuff that you used to enjoy about it, or that was meaningful, or was exciting, or that did engage you, all of that is less so. It's less exciting, it's less enjoyable, it's less engaging, it's less meaningful. You're just kind of going from one thing to the next to the next. And when something extra, for me, when my experience was when I was burnt out, or when I start getting there these days, and I catch it and I withdraw from it. But when I start, I know, because when somebody says, oh, we have one extra task for you, I have an outsized reaction. I have an overreaction to it. It's like somebody like did something terrible to me, and they might be asking for 5 minutes. But for me, I just feel like I can't. And no, that's like,
Like,
there's no room left. Right. I'm suffocated. And so it's like, and sometimes it takes that to alert me that, oh, I thought I had breathing room, but I don't, because that little extra request made me groan inside or outside or whatever the thing is. And so those are signs. You're just tired all the time. It's not exciting. It's not meaningful. You're kind of numb. You're just trying to get through the day, and everything extra just feels like a burden.
that's very meaningful, actually, and I hope it's going to wake up a lot of people who listening to that program. What they should catch that early. So tell me, if people feel those signs, what should be the steps to get out of that situation?
So first of all, people will always say to me, like, first of all, yeah, but that's how life is. That's what work life is. And I'll be like, oh no. Work life can be difficult, and it can have moments, but it's not this numbing drudgery, this difficult, laborious slog, the grind. I mean, it's called Mind Over Grind, the book, because the grind, it's not a constant grind. It shouldn't be all the time. So that's not normative at all. There are people who I work very hard. I know people who work very, very hard. I don't feel a grind all the time at all. So that's not normal. Number one. And number two, you have to make some changes. And people say to me, like, I can't make changes because I have to work, and I have to raise my kids, and I have to do all those things. And I'm like, there is so much wasted time. There is so much wasted effort, because when you're exhausted, you are so much less effective and so much less productive and so much less creative. All your cognitive abilities, all your mental abilities are diminished because of the chronic exhaustion and the chronic stress you feel. So you're actually not operating at your capacity. You're operating at 60, 70% or less if you keep going down. If you actually take the break, take some time to restore, do the things you need to do to recover from the stress and from the burnout, you'll be able to come back and be much more effective and get much more done. This is not you operating at your best. This is you operating not at all at your best. And you might have forgotten what your best looks like, but it's not this, I promise you.
No, that's a hope. Your passionate speech gonna wake a lot of people up, as well as your book Mind Over Grind, because in the way you describe the work as a grinding machine, I feel like the meat grinder, and that's not
It
pleasant.
is. Right.
That's not pleasant. But I'm gonna ask you the last question, and I highly recommend, we're gonna put your information underneath this interview, and you have a lot of ways to people can get your wisdom through the TED Talks, through your books, and you have 3 best-selling books, or maybe more. At least I see the 3 on my screen, and I really enjoy them. And people get those knowledge, and maybe go on your book clubs or book salons where you're gonna present your book in person. But in America, The work is a sign of pride. It's all of that. But now the work become very different. And it would be not even one conversation what we don't talk about AI or constant change. And what is one mental habit to prevent the burnout in this particular state? Because people actually are concerned about losing identity because they're going to lose the work.
Look, AI is a threat to a lot of industries, and it's actually quite real, and it's happening now, and it will continue to happen. And it's that sense of uncertainty that creates this dread of like, what's going to happen, or it's already happening in my industry, or what's going to happen and not knowing. Uncertainty creates anxiety, and anxiety creates dread. But you can minimize the uncertainty. You can start your plan A, plan B, plan C. Now, if you see something happening, if you think it might in your industry, then where do you think your industry is going? What skill sets do you need to develop in order to be ahead of the curve? Maybe you need to start networking now and updating your LinkedIn profile and your CV and your resume. And maybe you need to start thinking about options of plan B. Maybe you need to think about the alternatives, or maybe you need to be ahead of the curve and think about, maybe I need to learn something about AI so that I can, use it in my field the way it's going to be used at the beginning, etc. In other words, get ahead of it, because what the uncertainty does is it paralyzes us and it makes us feel helpless. And so there's nothing I can do. I can just sit here and suffer. Don't sit there and suffer. Do something. Get on top of it. Take action. Whatever the action you take, the fact that you're taking it is going to make you feel more in control and make you feel less paralyzed, and that will make you feel less anxious.
Thank you very much. And I highly recommend everybody to read the book. We really appreciate, Guy, your time, and looking forward to learn more from you. Thank you.
Thank you so